So one more time, Napoleon Bonaparte, my decision to destroy the authority of the blacks in Saint-Domingue, Haiti, is not so much based on considerations of commerce and money as on the need to block forever the march of the blacks in the world. Napoleon Bonaparte. So Boko Haram, they keep on doing these terrorist attacks and nobody's saying a word about it. When I look at the Paris attacks, what happened in Paris is a tragedy. It's horrible what had happened in Paris. But it's not the very worst terrorist attack that has even happened this year.
So the Haitian Revolution totally kicked the American Revolution and the French Revolution's ass in terms of utilitarian freedom for all, egalite, fraternité, liberté for everybody. And
when I think about large-scale atrocities, one of the things I think about is the 2014 cutting the grass, the Gaza war, when Israel murdered 2,000 people. Here's the damage that the 2014 Israel-Gaza conflict, also known as Operation Protective Edge, killed. So between 2,142 and 2,310 people were murdered, killed. And then between 10,600 to 10,800 were wounded, including 3,374 children, of whom over 1,000 were left permanently disabled. 66 Israeli soldiers, 5 Israeli citizens, including 1 child and the 1 Thai civilian, were killed. So, compare and contrast. 469 IDF soldiers and 261 Israeli civilians were injured. But in terms of the death toll, 70, Israelis were killed versus 2,000, 2,200. And why does Israel get away?
And the American Revolution forgot the women. It forgot white men who didn't own land. Anybody, or under 21. Black people and Native Americans. So essentially most of the population, the American Revolution forgot. The French Revolution started out pretty good, getting rid of the aristocracy, bourgeoisie, knocking it out of the park, right? Chopping off their head. You can't get any more clear of who the enemy is after that. That totally sets the tone. It totally changes France to a completely new country.
With these crimes, because America covers Israel's ass, whether they're right or wrong. Just like an abusive parent, right? They're right even when they're wrong. Now, fuck you. If you're doing wrong, you're murdering innocent people, that's wrong. That's wrong. And so that's 2,000 people. When you think of the murders that happened in Paris, that's only 130. It's not 2,000 people. When you think of 2,000 people this year, I thought of the Boko Haram. You had Charlie Hebdo, and everybody was all pissed off, or like, Jesus Charlie. So, that was a horrible thing, and the cartoonists should be allowed to say what they want to say. But then the Boko Haram had killed, they say from 100 to 2,000 people. The Western media was saying 2,000 people. So if that's a horrible tragedy, if 2,000 is such a horrible number, shouldn't we be paying attention to this? Right? Save our girls.
But the Haitian Revolution was when the slaves themselves got their freedom. When the slaves themselves got their freedom, that's what changes the game. That changes the game. That's the oppressed becoming the kings. It's the oppressed getting free. And even, compared to what the Jefferson was in favor of the French Revolution, he resigns after Washington and Hamilton decide to declare neutrality between Britain and France when France declared their own revolution. Thomas Jefferson thought that the French Revolution and the American Revolution were one and the same. But as soon as the American Revolution had, they're victorious against Great Britain, then automatically we start to be allies with Great Britain, right? If they acknowledge the country, then heck, our fathers, acknowledge that we exist. I'm so tickled to death. But that's why the War of 1812 happened. Even Thomas Jefferson, who had defended the French Revolution, had resigned from his seat, still talked about Haiti as being that cannibal republic. That cannibal republic, that, black nation. And that's ultimately, that was the point. Thomas Jefferson didn't want to give up his slaves. A lot of the Southern aristocracy could not support Haiti in their revolutionary efforts. In fact, selling Louisiana Purchase to Napoleon so that way he would have more money and resources to go back into Haiti. And then Napoleon, of course, had that famous quote that he says that he doesn't want to reconquer Haiti to get, all the sugar and the slavery. While all that matters, commerce and money matters, really he has to reconquer Haiti to stop the march of progress for black people. He's got to stop the Black March. They cannot progress whatsoever. So it was a racist endeavor. It was to make sure France dominates the entire world, and the entire continent of Africa right below France isn't shit.
But 2000 is what the American people, American government can put the souls of 2,200 Gazans on your consciences. Your government did that. Your government allowed Israel to murder all them Gazans. And for what? Because they believe in self-defense? Because every once in a while Israel wants to cut the grass? They just want to push the Gazans back a little bit more so they can keep on settling and putting their people and eventually just wipe the Palestinians out? So I think we got to be careful when we pick and choose where we're at. America as a whole needs to decide if we're an empire. Are we the world's policeman? Or does empire not help us? Let's give it to the United Nations and just worry about our own borders. I'm more for the latter. But we are an empire right now. 900 military bases, 150 countries. France is sort of a tiny empire. If you want to compare France to America, France has control over many African nations through their currency.
Let's take a look at their economic system. The CFA franc, colloquially the franc, is the name of two currencies used in Africa which are guaranteed by the French Treasury. The two CFA French currencies are the West African CFA franc and the Central African CFA franc. So you can see there's 14 countries that are using France's currency system. There's been some talk of creating the AFO, which is like the euro, but it's for all of Africa.
And that's important because they look at what we're doing and they think that what we're doing is acceptable, and so they follow into our footsteps. And if they, they look at us, if they're a small empire, we're the major empire, then I think it matters that if there is Boko Haram or Sudan, or, if there are humanitarian crises which American intervention could actually help somebody, that would change our prestige in the world. Let's do good things. We're an empire who doesn't just go after oil and our self-interest, but we go around and we save people who are being massacred and murdered by people like Boko Haram or, ISIS or what have you. Sudan, there was a civil war, Darfur, right? Well, we didn't give a fuck about Darfur. And, and why not, though? If we're the world's policeman and we're an empire, then we should give a fuck about Darfur, right? Isn't that the Hitler argument? If we didn't go after Hitler until he invaded our country, we would let him take over the entire world? Well, apparently that's what we are allowing the Boko Haram and ISIL and ISIS to do.
France has kind of jumped on board of this. They act like their interest doesn't matter, but it does matter. Here's a whole list of things that it actually takes. But let's take a look at the countries first. So there's 14 countries, right? They got the Western African states and then the Central African states. And these are the ones that France still has control over. Not just their economic, their currency, but they're allowed to invade the countries if they want to. They're allowed to go in the countries to protect their own interest. And so let's see. This is Mali. That's that big country right here. So Mali was where a terrorist attack just happened. 15 to 25 people had died. There's Senegal, some tiny country here. I'm not for sure.
So there have been 8 bigger attacks this year than every attack in Paris. There have been 8 bigger attacks. 130 people died in Paris just recently. Right, it's November 21st right now. A week ago. A couple days ago, 130 people were killed at a concert. 3 or 4 or 5, I don't know, some handful of people went into a concert, killed 130 people. But that isn't the worst terrorist attack that's happened this year. Now, what happened in Palestine in 2014, that was, in August. So that was in the fall. So that was pretty close to this year. It's almost been, just a little bit more than a year. But just this year, January 3rd to the 7th, you had 100 to 2,000 people killed by Boko Haram in a northern Nigerian village. March 20th, you had 5 suicide bombings of Shia mosque. So this is, Muslims are being attacked supposedly by ISIS in Yemen. March 20th, 137 people were killed. April 1st, the Garissa University in Kenya, Al-Shabaab, an Islamic terrorist group, did a massacre at the Garissa University in Kenya. April 1st, 147 people died. June 25th, 146 people were killed. This is ISIL. There were 3 car bombs in Kobani, Syria. 146 people, right? So it's 147, 136, let's see. These are more than 130. So far, 4 incidents that are more than 130 people. July 1st to the 2nd, 145 people were killed. Boko Haram, again, they did it in January, now they're doing it in July. Nigeria, same country, different city, Kukawa, the city of Kukawa. And the militants attacked mosque. So they're attacking Muslims. Muslims are the biggest victims of the extremists. So it isn't the religion. While the religion does have issues, there's apostasy. You try to get out of religion, they can murder you, they can kill you. There's Aisha, which is fucked up. No, you can't marry kids and you can't have sex with children. I don't care if your prophet is in favor of that. And jihad, everybody must become Muslim or else you'll kill them. We got to get rid of those things. There is parts of the Muslim religion that is horrible, and it is bad. And so those things do have to go. Religion is sort of a brainwashing. You're not living in reality. In terms of having some sort of moral guidebook, just logic really is what I go with. Don't murder, don't steal, don't rape, and don't hit. Right? Those are the 4 big ones. Can we agree on those 4 big ones?
There's Liberia, which isn't one of the countries, but that was where, before slavery was abolished in America, there were some people that said to repatriate Africans back to Africa. They went to Liberia. There's the Ivory Coast. So the Ivory Coast is still currency used by France, then Burkina Faso, then Mali, Senegal, and then Niger. This big country. Here's Nigeria, actually. It's right in the center. Boko Haram keeps bombing northeast Nigeria, which is kind of the center, kind of the heart of the African continent. I feel like Nigeria, the government itself in 2013 was accused of attacking its own people. So Nigeria is corrupt enough. We're an empire. We're not doing very good. World's policemen invading Nigeria is more preferable to anything, I don't know, and then like an Iraqi occupation. The Nigerian people need us if we're going to be an empire. If we're not, then we should have gone to Darfur and Sudan, which is right here. And I wonder if that had a lot to do with the same people. Here's Chad. Chad's part of the Central American Monetary Union.
So it's not the religion, it's the extremist group. Muslims are the biggest victims of these extremist groups. So I think we need to be, pay attention to that. But all 8 of the terrorist attacks that were bigger had a higher body count, which is only a surface analysis, but it gives us some indication. But all 8 of the 2015 terrorist attacks that were bigger than the Paris attacks were done by Boko Haram or ISIS or an affiliate of ISIS. There was only Al-Shabaab, which was an Islamic terrorist group that wasn't by Boko Haram or ISIS. So these are the biggest groups: Boko Haram, ISIS, Al-Qaeda, and I think ISIS is in Syria, and Al-Qaeda is in Syria, and Boko Haram seems to be killing people willy-nilly, and nobody's stopping them. They did it in January, 3rd to the 7th. Maybe 2,000 people were killed. July 1st to the 2nd, 145 people were killed. Kukawa in Nigeria, so that's July 1st to the 2nd. They are going to do it again in September, 145 people killed. So Boko Haram, and these are the big massacres with lots of body counts. There's, thousands, hundreds if not thousands, of terrorist attacks that have already happened, this year. But these are the ones with the biggest body count. Boko Haram in Nigeria, the city of Maiduguri, in northeast Nigeria. So again, same country, Nigeria, different city, but same, area. And it was by a series of bombs and suicide bombers. So a series of bombs and suicide bombers is why Boko Haram was able to kill 145 people in September. July 17th, there was a suicide bombing in Iraq. ISIS did this. 180 people were killed, 15 of them being children. These are bigger terrorist atrocities this year that are happening. And, it's tragic no matter where it happens, but I think we need to put it in context. The Russian plane, an ISIL affiliate, the Wilayah.
Then you have Central Africa, then Gabon, Cameroon, and then 2 other countries there. But there's 14 countries in Africa, you see them right there, that still use the French currency. Here's a map that shows a little bit more. These blue hats are United Nations interventionists, and then these 2 soldiers are French. So, the United Nations has had to enter many of the same countries, but the French have nearly invaded each and every one of the countries that they have their currency in. So when their interests are threatened, then they're allowed to use force.
Wilayah signed up an ISIL affiliate on October 31st. The Airbus, the Metrojet Flight 9268, an ISIL affiliate, had bombed a Russian plane in Egyptian airspace. 224 people were killed. So there's 8 larger terrorist massacres that have happened this year that was bigger than the Paris attacks. So I think when we look at who to blame and what we need to do, we need to be more specific. Just, saying that it's a Muslim and going into a Muslim country and killing as many Muslims, that isn't going to solve it. You got to find out who did it. 9/11, all the hijackers were killed in the plane crash. So they had to find other people to attack. But if we were to have the same mentality as 9/11, let's say like Dylan Roof. Dylan Roof killed, 6 people just in a church for no reason. That's terrorism. Attack a civilian population, political ends. That's what he did. So since, he's behind bar right now, but who financed him? What state produced him? And do they harbor any more terrorists like Dylan Roof? That would be the same logic.
So if you want to go to here, the siliconeafrica.com, they're coup d'etat people. So anybody that's, doesn't get on board with the France controls Africa's money plan, there's a guy named Olympio. 3 days after he started printing his country's own currency, a squad of illiterate soldiers backed by France killed the first elected president of newly independent Africa. We didn't kill Haiti, which was the first democratic president, but we kidnapped him and forced him to resign for the same reasons. I heard Libya, Gaddafi, because he was going to create an African currency, the United Africa, that he was killed for that reason. So Olympio was killed by an ex-French Foreign Legionnaire Army sergeant called Etienne Gassanabi, who supposedly received a bounty of $612 from the local French embassy for the hitman job.
And so, we do want to root out this evil and this corruption. We don't want any more Dylan Roofs to happen. So we need to be careful for many reasons. But one, Al-Qaeda was created by the CIA and Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan gave bin Laden his weapons. Well, how did bin Laden get his money and his weapons? America gave it to him. How did Saddam Hussein get a bunch of weapons? We gave it to him. When Iraq and Iran were fighting each other in the 80s, of course we want to kill, let them kill each other. Here, just sell weapons to both of those countries. So we gave Iraq weapons in the 80s. That was Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan gave bin Laden lots of weapons. And then you arm the rebels, and then eventually the rebels turn on us. The CIA calls that blowback.
Olympio's dream was to build an independent and self-sufficient, self-reliant country, but the French didn't like that idea. On June 30th, 1962, Modibo Keïta, the first president of the Republic of Mali decided to withdraw from the French colonial currency FCFA, which was imposed on 12 newly independent African countries. For the Malian president, who is leaning more towards a socialist economy, it was clear that colonization continuation pact with France was a trap, a burden for the country's development. And that's why on November 19th, 1968, like Olympio Keita will be the victim of a coup carried out by another ex-French foreign legionnaire, the Lieutenant Moussa Traoré. Then you have Jean Bedel Bokassa carried out a coup against David Dacko, the first president of the Central African Republic. Then Maurice Yamega, the first president of the Republic of Upper Volta, now called Burkina Faso, was a victim of a coup. October 1972, Matthew Caracau was a security guard to President Hubert Maga, the first president of the Republic of Benin, carried a coup against the president after he attended French military schools for 2 years. So, coup d'etat, right, in Burkina Faso, coup d'etat in Benin, coup d'etat Central African Republic, coup d'etat over and over again by French mercenaries. The numbers of coups in Africa by country, lots of coups, Togo, Tunisia, Ivory Coast, Madagascar, Rwanda. So, as these numbers demonstrate, France is quite desperate but active to keep a stronghold on his colonies, whatever the cost, no matter what. Jacques Chirac said, without Africa, France will slide down into the rank of a third world power. Chirac's predecessor, Francois Mitterrand, already prophesied in 1957 that without Africa, France will have no history in the 21st century.
So we give them weapons, and now they're shooting back at us. Same thing at Syria. That's what Rand Paul, and I'm not a libertarian, I'm a Bernie Sanders supporter, but when Rand Paul says, look at McCain is talking to the Al-Qaeda and ISIS, and we're giving money to ISIS and Al-Qaeda to take out Assad's regime, and so Assad is the bad guy, but now the ISIS and Al-Qaeda people that McCain was talking to are shooting at us. So that's blowback immediately. That's, Bin Laden, that's Saddam Hussein, and now that's the exact same thing that's happening with Syria. So we're going into a quagmire. We have Assad and ISIS and Al-Qaeda, lots of enemies, very few moderates, very few, people that are going to welcome any type of intervention into their nation. So we got to be careful. We got to pick and choose the good and the bad and if we keep on picking bloody dictators that hate the people and destroy their own people, and we keep on siding with terrorist groups, that's, we're going to lose this battle of hearts and minds throughout the world.
So there's lots of things that, colonial debt is for the benefits of France colonialization. And since, just like with Haiti, they forced them to pay reparations, they still want to get something out of the deal.
So we must be careful when we intervene and who we give weapons to, what side, does what. Now, I think we got to be careful too, because we haven't decided whether or not we want to be an empire, but 80% of Africans love George W. Bush. 80%. When he got out of office, there was a poll, that was done, and 80% of Africans loved that Bush was intervening and saying, we're the leader of the world, so we're going to do what we need to do. 80% is a lot of people. I almost think that Africa, since there's so much corruption and crime and violence, they would welcome a leader, America, to come in and sort of clean the mess up instead of just allowing Africans to be, killing Boko Haram, just killing whoever the fuck they feel like it. So we do need to make a decision. If we're an empire, that makes us the world's policeman, so we should invade Nigeria to save Nigeria from its own government and Boko Haram and any other, terrorist group. We're an empire. We're supposed to be the world's policeman. That's 900 military bases, 150 countries. If we're going to be an empire and we only invade when we can take oil and we don't give a shit about humanitarian crisis, then that's going to create more terrorism. It's going to be bad policy. We should just pack it up home and, let the United Nations do it. And that's actually, empire doesn't help me. Run it through the United Nations. That's the reason why we created the United Nations, so one nation doesn't invade another nation. We got nuclear weapons, so we don't want to kill ourselves. We don't want to die.
Automatic confiscation of national reserves. right? So in order to back their money, then they have to have something that backs their money, and that's how they say that the money is hard money. It's got something that backs it, unlike the American dollar. We used to have gold, but nothing backs it now but national reserves. So France has been holding the national reserves of 14 African countries since 1961. These are the same 14 countries. Benin, Burkina Faso, Guinea-Bissau, Ivory Coast, Mali, Niger, Senegal, Togo, Cameroon, Central African Republic, Chad, Congo, Brazzaville, Equatorial Guinea, and Gabon.
So, we need to make a decision. Since we are, the reality of the situation is that we are an empire, then whenever the Sudan and Darfur, we should have intervened. Nigeria, with all this Boko Haram, July, September, January, they're killing major massacres, Paris-like massacres. And, in January, it was a Gaza-like massacre, 2,000 people. But 145. July 1st, and then September 20th, 145. So 145, that's more than 130. These are bigger massacres than what happened in Paris, happened in Nigeria, and nobody's doing a fucking thing about it. So I think the media, the people that are criticizing the media saying that they care more about the Paris attacks than the attacks that are happening in Africa is correct. There is an implicit racist bias. Who cares what happens in Africa, right? There's nothing you can do about them. Let them all just kill themselves. But it happens in Paris. Oh, no, that's getting closer to us. And so, can we all just get along? Can we all just get along?
So, control of their national reserves. The right of first refusal on any raw or natural resource discovered in the country. So if they find raw or natural resources, then France gets to say, no, we don't want that, which I don't know why they would ever say that. Priority to French interest in companies in public procurement and public bidding. So French companies get first dibs on new projects, exclusive right to supply military equipment and train the country's military officers. So only they can supply military equipment, giving it to their friends so they can kill their enemies, and they could also train whichever ones they want to train.
I guess the last thing I'll mention would be Napoleon's whole point of going and reclaiming Haiti, Saint-Domingue, at the time, it's not so much based on considerations of commerce and money, but as on the need to block forever the march of the blacks in the world. Napoleon Bonaparte didn't reclaim Haiti, didn't sell the Louisiana Purchase to Thomas Jefferson to get all that money to attack Haiti to make money. He didn't want to restart the sugar plantations up, and he didn't want to reinstitutionalize slavery for commerce and money, but to make sure black people understood their place, that they could never progress. Fuck you, fuck your world, fuck your revolution. France is superior, and to hell with you all. And then they put the reparations on them for 100 years, bankrupting, basically breaking what little money and treasure that the young and newly independent Republic of Haiti even had. So that's the point. That's what France wants to do to Haiti, and we should never forget that. We should never forget what France did to Haiti. France's revolution, America's revolution, Haiti's revolution kicks both of their asses. It's a true blue revolution where the slaves actually got free instead of some aristocracy, instead of, Robespierre or, some plantation powder wig wearing, aristocrat, which is what happened in the United States. It was a true blue revolution. So he didn't just stop the progress for blacks of the world. He stopped progress for oppressed peoples. He stopped progress for people. That's what Napoleon was all about. He was an oppressor carrying the banner of revolution on his lips, but being completely anti-revolutionary. So we should never forget what Napoleon, how they treated Haiti. Today you have 14 countries that are using France's currency. They are using, market manipulation. They are keeping all the reserves in France And anytime that there is a military issue, France can invade and save their interest in these countries, which use their own currency. So you should never forget what they did, to Saint Louverture, the leader of the revolution, of the Haitian Revolution. You should never forget that, because it shows the basis of what France and, the people of France, what they're about. But it's still happening today. In fact, I saw a couple quotes that said that if it wasn't for Africa, then the history of France in the 21st century would be nothing. There would be nothing going on with France.
Right, for France to pre-deploy troops and intervene militarily in the country to defend its interest, which, we saw that it's happened many times. Obligation to make French the official language of the country and the language for education. So not only do you have to use the French currency, but also have to speak the French language. Obligation to use France colonial money, the FCFA. So obligation to send France an annual balance and reserve report, or else they don't get money. Renunciation to enter into a military alliance with any other country unless authorized by France. Renunciation. Okay. Obligation to ally with France in a situation of war or a global crisis, right? Hey, you're our allies, we need you. So that's a lot of, it's not just using their currency, but it's forcing them to be allies in, military interventions. They can pick and choose who's their allies, who's not their allies. They have to send, they get the first dibs on the natural resources. All the reserves are put up in order to back the currencies that they use. If there's raw materials that are found, then France gets first dibs on it. They can use their own companies to get into the bidding process. Obligation to make French the official language. So not only the currency, but they got to learn the language in the schools. And for all business and government matters, they have to use the France's CFA currency. And the CFA currency, it's the name of the two currencies. I don't know what CFA is supposed to mean, but Kifa? Sifa, here it says the name right here. Colonies of the France of Africa. So it's French African colonial money. That's what the fucking name of it is. They're not even sort of, hiding what it is.
So I think that's important. They, not only did they try to break Haiti because they were racist pieces of shit, but they also wanted to get reparations just to give them diplomatic awareness. Yes, you're your own nation, but France was able to make Haiti pay reparations to them because they lost their slaves. A little bit makes no sense. They just liberated themselves. But, it wasn't about doing what was right or wrong, but about squeezing little bitty Haiti as much as they can. You're right? You couldn't destroy them militarily, so let's get the reparations. It was to stop the march of the black man.
Here are the 14 countries, just to make sure that I got the right countries. Benin, Burkina Faso, Guinea-Bissau, Ivory Coast, Mali, Niger, Senegal, Togo, Cameroon, Central African Republic, Chad, Republic of the Congo, Equatorial Guinea, and Gabon. So those are the 14 countries that France still controls. So they're a little empire. They're a little mini. They're like America Junior in some respects. And then they can supply military equipment, train the country's officers. So France has, still a type of colonization that's happening in Africa right now. And we've seen what Napoleon did to Haiti. They wanted to stop the march of the black man. The progress of the black people had to be stopped. That was the point of Haiti. And Napoleon wanted to reconquer and re-enslave Haiti. Not for money, not for commerce, but to stop black people in general. To stop Africans, people from Africa, with darker skin color than Napoleon, from progressing.
That was the reason. That's why you have, there's 14 countries that are still on France's currency. I think that's important because it shows a budding empire or an ex-empire that still wants to maintain its control of the world. And since France is a microcosm of what America actually is, it does, attack our empire interest. And so if you love the empire and you want to maintain the empire, then, we need to start doing humanitarian interventions with Nigeria and other countries. If you're not in favor of the empire, then let's bring our boys home, let the United Nations police the world, and let's use all those trillions of dollars that we spend on the military, let's spend that money on us. For every rocket, every bomb that we spend $1 on, that's $1 taken out of the mouths of our children, out of the education and healthcare funds of our own people. So let's take that military money, spend it on us, and see how awesome America becomes.
You're the Freedom Flotilla with Cynthia McKinney. You weren't even allowed to give food to the Palestinians because of the Israeli blockade. And Israel gets away with all their crimes because of the United States veto in the United Nations. There's 5 countries in the Security Council who have veto power, and the U.S. is one. So even if the whole world condemns Israel, the United States covers their asses up. So there's terrorist attacks happening in Nigeria. Are we going to intervene and declare war on behalf of Nigerian people? Or are we going to only declare war on behalf of the French people? So that gives us a right to expand the empire. And empire doesn't help me.